Welcome to Reform Thinking. I'm your host, and I guess you could say I'm the layperson in the room. I'm really just trying to make sense of the text and ask the questions that I suspect a lot of you are probably asking during the Sunday sermon.
And I am here to do my best to answer them, or at the very least, point us toward the scriptures that do. It's good to be with you again.
We pitch this show a little differently than a standard audio program.
Right.
We're not here to chase the news cycle or, offer hot takes on whatever's trending on social media. We really view this space as, well, more like a study hall.
A study hall. I like that. It's a place for careful theological consideration.
Exactly. We want to slow down.
That's right. The culture moves so fast, but theology, good theology, that requires patience. We want to be the people who take the time to really chew on the text until we get all the nutrition out of it.
And before we get started, I do want to make sure everyone knows where we're coming from, because context is everything.
It is.
We're two friends who love the Bible, and we're operating from a confessional standpoint. We adhere to the Westminster Confession of Faith.
Which means we believe in a sovereign God, we see a covenantal structure running through Scripture, and we hold that the Bible is the only infallible rule of faith and practice.
Right.
And for the purposes of this discussion, it means we're going to talk about the Bible with respect and order.
Without talking over one another.
That's the idea.
That's the goal. Civil discourse on weighty matters. So I've been digging through the lexicon again, and I found a word that I think is going to surprise people.
Whoa.
It looks really simple on the surface, but the more I looked at the usage, the more layers I found.
I enjoy it when that happens. What's the word for today?
The word is Moshav. That's Strong's number 4106 for anyone who wants to look it up.
Moshav.
Moshav.
Yes, that is an excellent choice. It's a noun that's derived from the verb yeshab,
Which means to sit.
to sit, to
Right.
remain, or to dwell. All of those.
Yeah, the definitions I saw were things like dwelling, seat, assembly, or even situation. It feels like a very physical, very grounded word.
It is physical.
Yeah.
But, as we often see in Hebrew, the concrete physical object usually points to a larger, an abstract reality.
So what's our mission today?
Our mission today is to examine how this single word frames some massive concepts in the Old Testament. We're going to look at authority, geography, the home, and believe it or not, even time itself.
It's wild to think that one word can cover a king's throne and a calendar year.
It is.
But we'll get there.
Okay,
So let's start with the most literal meaning, the seat.
let's begin there.
Okay, let's unpack this. When we say mashab is a seat, we're not just talking about, a recliner in your living room. The first place this really jumped out at me was in 1 Samuel chapter 20.
Right. The story is David and Jonathan.
A classic narrative.
It is.
And the context here is just high tension. King Saul is frankly losing his mind. He's paranoid. He wants to kill David. David's hiding in a field, and Jonathan is trying to sort of gauge his father's temper. And there's this very specific detail about dinner. In 1 Samuel 20.8, Jonathan says to David, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed because your seat will be empty."
And that word seat is Moshav.
That's the one.
And then just a few verses later, in verse 25, it says the king sat on his seat, as at other times, on the seat by the wall. Jonathan stood, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty.
Help us understand the weight of this. I mean, why does the text focus on the furniture? Why does it matter that David's Moshav was empty?
Well, think about a formal state dinner or even a corporate board meeting today. Where you sit determines your status.
Okay.
In the ancient Near East, the Moshav was not just a place to rest your legs. It was your place in the administration. To have a Moshav at the king's table meant you were part of the inner circle.
So you were protected.
You were protected. You were honored. You had a voice.
To see, empty seat is basically a political statement.
Precisely. It signifies a profound change in status. David's absence from his Moshav was the physical, visible sign that he was no longer safe within Saul's, let's call it, covenant protection.
He's an outsider now.
He's an outsider. And that empty seat screamed treason to Saul.
It's interesting because we so often think of dwelling as a house, but here Moshav is a very specific spot at a table. It implies belonging, and if you lose your Moshav,
You lose your standing.
you lose your standing.
That's correct. And that connection between sitting and authority is crucial. If we fast forward to the prophets, specifically to Ezekiel, we see this concept of the seat taken to a terrifying extreme.
Ah, you're thinking of the Prince of Tyre.
I am. Ezekiel 28, verse 2.
This is one of those passages that just stops you in your tracks. God is telling Ezekiel to prophesy against the prince of Tyre, and the accusation is just incredible. The text says, "Because your heart is proud and you have said, 'I am a god, I sit in the seat of gods in the heart of the seas.'"
I see it in the Moshav of gods, Moshav Elohim.
I mean, that is bold.
It's the ultimate expression of the sin of pride.
Yeah.
Here you have a creature, a mere man, attempting to usurp the position of the creator.
He's not just claiming to be powerful.
No, not at all. He's claiming the Moshav, the judicial seat, the very throne of the divine.
And the irony is just so thick here because Ezekiel immediately follows that up by saying, "Yet you are but a man and no God."
Indeed. The prophet uses irony so effectively there. You claim the Moshav of Elohim, but you're just flesh and blood. From a reformed theological perspective, this is the root of all sin.
It's the creature refusing to be the creature.
Exactly. It's Adam in the garden wanting to be like God. It's the refusal to accept the Moshav, the station that God has assigned to us, and instead trying to seize the throne for ourselves.
It connects right back to the Westminster Shorter Catechism, doesn't it? What is the chief end of man?
To glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
Right. Not to become God.
You are correct. God is sovereign. We are the subjects. When the Prince of Tyre claims the seat of gods, he's violating that fundamental distinction between the creator and the creature. He is trying to sit in a chair that is infinitely too big for him.
So we have the empty seat of David, which shows a loss of safety and status. And we have the usurped seat of Tyre, which shows pride and, well, blasphemy. But there is a positive example of this seating concept, too. I'm looking at the notes on Solomon.
Yes, 1 Kings 10.5 and the parallel in 2 Chronicles 9.4. This is when the Queen of Sheba visits Solomon.
Right. She comes to test him with hard questions. She sees his wisdom, his house, the food on his table, and then the text says she saw the seating of his servants.
The Moshav of his officials.
And it says there was no more breath in her. She was floored by the seating chart.
It does sound funny to us, doesn't it? Being impressed by his seating chart seems so trivial. But the word Moshav here refers to the organized assembly, the orderliness of his entire administration.
So it wasn't chaotic?
It wasn't a mob.
Yeah.
Everyone had a place, and everyone knew their function. It was a well-oiled machine.
So it was a reflection of the king's wisdom.
Indeed. A wise king produces a structured, orderly kingdom. Chaos is the opposite of wisdom in the biblical mind. Just think of Genesis 1, bringing order out of chaos. Solomon, as the wise king, reflects that divine attribute by having a proper Moshav for his servants.
That's a great application. Orderliness in God's kingdom isn't just about being, uptight or rigid. It's about reflecting God's nature. It reflects wisdom.
And it sets up a nice transition, actually. If Moshav can mean the company you keep or the assembly you sit with.
Then that brings us to the ethics of sitting.
Exactly.
This is one of my favorite connections in this whole study. So segment 2, the assembly who you sit with.
We'll examine that.
We have to go to Psalm 1. I mean, it's probably one of the most famous verses in the Bible. "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners."
Nor sits in the seat of scoffers.
The Moshav scoffers. Moshableh.
That's it.
I've heard so many sermons on the progression here. Walking, then standing, then sitting. Break that down for us. What's the real significance of sitting as the final stage of this decline?
Well, just think about the physics of it. If you're walking, you're moving through a place, you're transient.
Okay.
If you stand, you've stopped, you're engaging, but you can still easily walk away. But if you sit down,
You've settled in. You've taken up residence.
you've taken up residence,
Yeah.
correct? Sitting implies a settled state, a permanent identification with that group. To sit in the Moshav of scoffers means you have adopted their mindset as your home. You are not just listening to them anymore. You belong to them.
That's a chilling thought when you put it like that. It's the difference between, say, hearing a bad idea and then letting that bad idea become your entire worldview.
It is. And notice the specific word, scoffers. It's a particular type of wickedness.
It's not just sinners?
No, it's cynicism. It's mockery. The person who sits in that seat has stopped seeking truth and has settled for just tearing down the truth.
So, if the Moshav of scoffers is the bad option, what's the good option? Because the word Moshav itself is neutral, isn't it? It just means assembly or session.
That's right. The assembly is neutral. The content determines its moral value.
Okay.
If you flip over to Psalm 107, verse 32, you see the direct contrast. Let them extol him in the congregation of the people and praise him in the assembly of the elders.
The Moshav of the elder.
Moshav Zakwan. Yes. The blessed man avoids the session of the mockers and instead finds his place in the session of the elders, the wise, the leaders of the covenant community.
I can't help but hear the Presbyterian connection there. I mean, we literally call the governing body of a local church the session.
We do. And it's not an accident. It comes directly from this concept of a seated, deliberative body. The elders sit to rule, to guide, and to shepherd the flock.
So for the listener, the question really is, which Moshav are you in? We're social creatures. We're all going to sit somewhere.
That's right.
Are we sitting with the cynics, the people who tear everything down? Or are we sitting with the elders, the people who are building up and praising God?
That is the crucial question. And it emphasizes the need for the visible church. You cannot be a Lone Ranger Christian. You need to be in the Moshav of the righteous. You need to be under the care of the elders. That's where safety and wisdom are found.
That's where the order of Solomon is found rather than the chaos of the world.
Indeed.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've looked at the chair, the throne, the council table. Now let's look at the map. Moshav is used constantly in the Old Testament to talk about geography.
Yes, dwelling place is probably its most common translation.
So start us off with the big picture, Genesis 10, the Table of Nations.
Right. This is the genealogy of the sons of Noah, laying out the origins of the nations. And in Genesis 10, verse 30, speaking of the sons of Joktan, it says, their dwelling was from Mesha as you go towards Sephar to the hill country of the east.
Moshavim, their dwelling.
That's it.
It sounds like a dry geography lesson, but what's the theological point there?
The point is that nations do not just happen to end up where they are by accident. God sovereignly appoints the habitable boundaries of all the peoples.
It reminds me of what Paul says in Acts 17, that God determined the allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place.
It's the exact same theology. And we see this even in the personal prophecies of the patriarchs. Look at Genesis 27, verse 39. This is Isaac speaking to Esau.
This is a tricky one. Depending on your translation, it can sound very different.
It can. The ESV, for instance, says, behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be. Others might render it differently, but the core word is still Moshav. Isaac is prophesying about the location, the very nature of the land that Esau's descendants, the Edomites, will inhabit.
So Esau gets the rocky red wilderness, and Jacob gets the land of milk and honey.
Right. And that was not Esau's choice. It was a divinely appointed Moshav. Providence dictates geography.
Okay, here's where it got really interesting to me. I was looking at the distinction the text sometimes makes between cities and dwellings. In Numbers 31.6 and also in Ezekiel 6.6.
Yes. In Numbers 31.10, it says, they burned all their cities and the places where they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire.
So that phrase, places where they dwelt, is bimusham.
Correct.
So there's a difference between a city and a mushab.
In this context, yes. The city usually implies a walled, fortified location. The Moshav here likely refers to the unwalled settlements, the grazing areas, the villages spread out in the countryside.
So like the suburbs.
Basically, or the pastoral encampments. It encompasses the whole territory, not just the central fortress.
What's the implication of that distinction?
Well, think about vulnerability. The city has walls. The Moshav, the open dwelling, relies on peace and external protection. But in judgment, God says in Ezekiel 6.6, in all your dwelling places, Moshav, the city shall be laid waste.
Meaning nowhere is safe.
Correct. Whether you are behind the high walls of the city or out in the open Moshav of the countryside, when God brings judgment, your geography cannot save you.
That's a sobering thought. We tend to trust in our walled cities, our bank accounts, our security systems.
Our gated communities.
Right. But God judges the whole Moshav.
He does. But there's also a more neutral nuance of situation or topography. Look at 2 Kings 2.19.
This is the story of Elisha at Jericho, right?
Yes. The men of the city come to Elisha and say, behold, the situation of this city is pleasant, as my Lord sees, but the water is bad.
The situation, that's Moshav.
It is. It refers to the physical site itself, the view, the location, the way it sits on the land. You could almost translate it, the sitting of the city is good.
I like that. It's very practical. It's like real estate. Location, location, location. The Moshav was nice, but the water was poison.
Which is a fantastic metaphor, isn't it? You can have a beautiful external Moshav, a great house, a great job, a nice view, but if the water, the life source, is bitter, the city is uninhabitable.
And Elisha heals the water. He redeems the Moshav.
Correct.
Okay, let's move from the city level down to the family level. The domestic sphere. Moshav isn't just about national borders, it's the roof over your head.
Segment 4, the domestic sphere. Yes.
I found Leviticus 25.29 really helpful here. It's talking about laws for redeeming property, and it uses the phrase Beit Moshav.
A dwelling house.
Right. It distinguishes this from other types of property. This is the home, the place where life actually happens.
And this is where the Reformed emphasis on the covenant household really shines. The word Moshav can be used as a collective noun.
Give us an example of that.
Look at 2 Samuel 9, verse 12. This is the story of Mephibosheth, Jonathan's crippled son. David restores Saul's land to him and puts Ziba, the servant, in charge of working the land. And the text says, all who dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants to Mephibosheth.
All who dwelt, Kol Moshav Beit Ziba.
Yes, and it doesn't mean all the furniture in the house. It means all the inhabitants.
The whole family.
The whole family and then some. Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. That whole massive group, the entire Moshav, was swept up in this new arrangement of service.
This sounds an awful lot like what we see in the New Testament with household baptisms. He and his whole household were baptized.
It's the same principle.
Right.
In the biblical mind, the Moshav, the dwelling, is a unit. The head of the house represents the house. When Ziba is commanded to serve, his whole Moshav serves.
We are so individualistic in the West. We think, well, I'm serving God, but my kids and my employees, they all do their own thing.
But the biblical worldview sees the Moshav as an organic whole. If you are the head of the Moshav, your decisions affect everyone sitting under your roof.
That puts a lot of weight on fathers and leaders, right?
It does. It means your dwelling is not just a building. It's a community of souls under your care.
Okay, hold on to your hats, listeners, because this next one blew my mind. We've talked about Moshav as a chair, a city, and a house, all spatial things, places you can point to on a map or in a room. But there's a usage that refers to time.
Yes, this is segment 5. Time as a dwelling place. It's fascinating.
Exodus 12:40. This is recounting the exodus from Egypt.
The verse reads, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
The word sojourning there is Moshav.
Literally, the sitting of the children of Israel was 430 years.
So usually Moshav answers the question where, but here it's answering the question how long.
Correct. It refers to the period of residence.
Yeah.
But I think there's a deeper philosophical point here. We inhabit time just as much as we inhabit space.
Say more about that. That's interesting.
The Israelites were sitting in Egypt, but that sitting had a temporal limit. It was 430 years, not a day more, not a day less. God had defined the boundaries of that temporal Moshav just as clearly as Rava. He defined the geographical boundaries of the Promised Land.
That is fascinating. So our time on Earth is a Moshav. It's a fixed residence in time.
It is. We are dwelling in this present age right now. We didn't choose this time. We didn't choose to be born in this era. God appointed this temporal Moshav for us.
And just like the Israelites in Egypt, there is a distinct beginning and a distinct end. The Moshav in Egypt ended. They marched out.
Indeed. Our time here is a temporary dwelling. We are sojourners. We sit here for a while, but the bell will ring. The 430 years, or 70 or 80 years for us, will run out, and we will move on.
It reframes how we look at history. History isn't just a random series of events. It's a series of appointed Moshavs, periods of residence designed by God.
And that gives us comfort, doesn't it? The oppression in Egypt must have felt endless to them, I'm sure.
Of course.
But God had measured the Moshav perfectly. It was a container with walls of time. It was not infinite.
That is surprisingly comforting. So whatever difficult season or Moshav a listener is in right now, it has a boundary. It's not forever.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the religious life, segment 6. We've got the cultic and Levitical dwellings. I noticed a refrain in Leviticus 23 regarding the feasts.
Yes. Leviticus 23 outlines the holy convocations. Passover, unleavened bread, Pentecost, tabernacles. And repeatedly, in verses 3, 14, 17, 21, and 31, we hear the phrase, in all your dwellings.
Mushaptekim.
That's the one.
Why does God keep repeating that? It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings. What's the point?
Because there was a constant temptation to think that religion only happened at the tabernacle. You go to the central sanctuary, you offer the sacrifice, you do the God stuff, and then you go home and live however you want.
The classic Sunday Christian versus the Monday pagan.
Precisely. But God is saying no. The Sabbath is to be kept in all your dwellings. The restrictions on leaven. In all your dwellings.
So the holiness of the center, the tabernacle, is supposed to radiate out into every individual Moshav.
Correct. The private home is a religious sphere. Worship is not confined to the church building. It pervades the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom.
That's a very Reformed concept, too. Family worship, the duties of the home.
It is. The home is a little church. If you only keep the Sabbath at the temple, but violate it in your Moshav, you haven't really kept the Sabbath at all.
That's challenging. It is so much easier to look pious in the assembly of the elders on Sunday morning. It's harder to maintain that holiness in the privacy of your own Moshav on a Tuesday night when no one is watching.
That is the real test of faith, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, speaking of the priests, the Levites had a unique relationship with the word Moshav, didn't they?
They did. You'll remember that the Levites were the priestly tribe. They didn't get a province like Judah or Ephraim.
Yeah.
They didn't get a massive tract of land.
Right. The Lord was their inheritance.
But they still had to live somewhere. So in places like Ezekiel 48.15 and 1 Chronicles 6.39, we see that they were assigned specific Moshav, not a tribal territory, but dwelling places scattered among the other tribes.
It's almost like they were the salt sprinkled throughout the meal.
That is a great analogy. Their Moshav was decentralized so that they could teach the law to all of Israel wherever they were.
And then that brings us to the ultimate Moshav, Psalm 132.13.
For the Lord has chosen Zion. He has desired it for his dwelling. La Moshav lo.
This brings us full circle, right back to the Prince of Tyre, doesn't it?
It creates a perfect bookend. The Prince of Tyre said, I will sit in the seat of gods. He tried to grab the Moshav by force. But here God says, I have chosen Zion.
God chooses his own seat?
Yes. And look at what he chooses. He doesn't choose the high mountains of Hermon or the rich commercial ports of Tyre. He chooses Zion, a relatively humble hill in Jerusalem.
It speaks to election.
It does. Unconditional election. We don't choose where God dwells. We don't conjure him up. He chooses. He's desired it. It's all about his divine initiative.
And it is so comforting that he desires to dwell with his people. He wants a Moshav among us.
That's the whole story of Scripture, isn't it? From Eden to the tabernacle to the temple to the incarnation, he dwelt among us, to the Holy Spirit indwelling the believer, all the way to the New Jerusalem. God is seeking a Moshav with man.
That is beautiful. Okay, before we wrap up, we have to do the nerdy thing. Segment 7, the textual nuance.
We must. We care about the text here.
There's a spot in Ezekiel 37, verse 23, where the word Moshav might or might not be the right word.
Right. So Ezekiel 37 is the famous chapter about the Valley of Dry Bones and the reunification of Israel and Judah. In verse 23, the Masoretic text, which is the standard Hebrew text, says something like, they shall not defile themselves anymore with their idols and their detestable things, but I will save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned.
Okay, wait, my translation says save them from all their backslidings in which they have sinned.
And that's the issue. The Masoretic text literally reads Moshapotem, their dwelling places. But that sounds a bit weird, doesn't it?
Oh.
I will save them from their dwelling places. Do they need to be saved from their houses?
Yeah, unless the houses are haunted, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the sin they need saving from.
Exactly. So many scholars, and they're supported by the Septuagint, the Greek translation, and other ancient witnesses, suggest that this is a scribal error. They think the original word was probably mubotium,
Which means?
their apostasies, or their backslidings.
And in Hebrew, that's just a tiny difference in spelling, right?
It's extremely close. It just involves a couple of similar-looking letters, and if you read it as apostasies, the verse makes perfect sense. I will save them from all their apostasies in which they have sinned.
That fits the context of defilement and transgression much better.
It does. And this is why we do textual criticism. We're not trying to change the Bible. We're trying to ensure we have the most accurate reading of what was originally written.
But, you know, even if it was dwelling places, you could almost argue, based on what we learned about the Moshav of scoffers, that God is saving them from the places where they settled into sin.
That is a possible reading. I will save you from the seats of scorners where you have been sitting. That's not impossible. But apostasies is likely the more direct, technical correction.
It's just a good reminder to read the footnotes in your Bible.
Always read the footnotes.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the king's table to the borders of nations, to the living room, to the calendar, to the temple. It's been a journey.
It really shows the elasticity of the Hebrew language. Moshav is a container word. It holds whatever fills it. People, time, authority, sin, righteousness.
So as we wrap up, let's try to summarize. Moshav is where you sit, and where you sit matters.
It matters for your safety like David. It matters for your soul like the man in Psalm 1. It matters for your family like Ziba. And ultimately, it matters because God is the one who appoints the Moshav.
We're not just drifting through life. We are placed.
We are placed.
I want to leave the listeners with a final thought, something to chew on this week. We talked about Psalm 107 earlier, the seat of elders, but there's another verse in that psalm, verses 35 and 36.
Yes. He turns a desert into pools of water, a parched land into springs of water. And there he makes the hungry dwell, that they may prepare a city for habitation.
Makes the hungry dwell. Moshav.
It's a beautiful picture of redemption. We start in the wilderness, parched, hungry, wandering. And God doesn't just give us a sandwich. He gives us a Moshav. He gives us a place to settle, a city to build, water to drink.
But here's the provocative question, I think. Are we content with the Moshav God has provided?
That is the question. The
Yeah.
Prince of Tyre was not content. He had a magnificent dwelling, but he wanted the Moshav of a god. He wanted to be the center of the universe.
And how often do we do that? We're not satisfied with the dwelling God has given us, our job, our family, our church, our specific place and time. We want a higher seat. We want the seat of control.
We want to be the sovereign. But true peace is found in accepting our creaturely Moshav, in saying, this is where God has placed me. This is the city he has given me to build. This is the time he has appointed for me.
That's the secret of contentment, not seeking the high seat, but being faithful in the seat you're already in.
Well said.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. It's always a pleasure to sit in this Moshav with you and open the Word.
The pleasure is all mine.
Until next time on Reformed Thinking.
Grace and peace.